Very warm welcome, members, to the next in our series of webinars on moving forward on pay and why nursing staff deserve a pay rise. My name's Pat Cullen, and for those that don't know me, I'm the Director of the Royal College of Nursing in Northern Ireland, and I'm your host for this webinar this evening. With me, I have the two people that will be answering all of your questions that are going to be posed this evening. A very warm welcome to Donna Kinnear, and Donna is the Chief Executive and General Secretary of the Royal College of Nursing, and Donna has with her Graham Reevy, and Graham is the Chair of our Trade Union Committee. So thank you very much for Donna and Graham being here. The session, as people will know, is planned from 8 to 9. We will try to get through as many of your questions as possible in that time. It's an hour. Any of the outstanding questions, we'll do our best to follow up on these. We would ask that the attendees put their questions into the live Q&A tab at the side of their webinar page. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Donna just to start us off with saying a few words, and then we will move into the actual questions. So thank you. Donna.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this live webinar, Q&A on pay. I, as your Chief Exec and General Secretary, have been very, very clear that we will have a line of sight on pay between what members are asking and what we put forward to the government. I think it's been really important that we've always known that nursing is a profession that actually puts itself on the line and works extremely hard with huge amount of skills and complex care being given to people out there. So we're really keen to make sure that you get rewarded for those skills. And this is why we've started these discussions early, so that actually we can test what we're doing with you as members. So thank you for attending. I'm really looking forward to taking your questions.
Pat, your microphone is muted.
First one, I said I would always get the job of Debbie McGee, but I'm definitely not going to get the job of Debbie McGee. I can't even unmute my mic. So the first question I'm going to move into is for Graham. So Graham, the first question that has come in is, what has the RCN done so far about pay?
Well, thanks very much for the question. It's kind of hard to actually work out where to start. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to autumn of last year, because that's when we started to actually work on this year's pay claim, because pay happens every year. Okay, we're just coming out of a 3-year pay deal, but pay is on the agenda for the college every year without fail, and it's one of the prime focuses of the college as we go through that. So what we've done. In the autumn of last year, we started to develop what we are considering our pay policy. And that when we developed that pay policy, that was done very much by the Trade Union Committee at the time. And I was not on the Trade Union Committee, but I was involved in that through my role as previously as the Chair of Stewards. So we developed the pay policy. We then actually looked at the structures that needed to be in place, and we developed the governance structures because it's really important. And at that point I was with the Trade Union Committee, but what we wanted to focus on was to make sure that the governance structures reflected the membership-led approach that had come out of the learning from the 2018 pay deal and the ERS report. So we looked at that and we took that forward, and therefore members became at the centre of everything that we did. We then, so the pay working group was set up. That's a group of staff that actually provide the expertise that we need as a trade union committee to inform us, to let us know, to gather evidence, to do pieces of significant work that actually allows us to the next piece of work, which was the development of the pay claim. And we developed the pay claim in accordance with the pay policy after it was approved by Council in June. So that pay claim that many of you have now already heard about has been a long time in the making. And that pay claim was developed based on, one, we done a survey, 42,000 members within the RCN responded to that survey, which gave us incredibly rich data, incredibly rich data. It told us what you wanted, how you valued yourself. It told us how the government didn't value us. It told us how managers were not as, sort of enthusiastic about the value of our profession. It also told us different things around how we were going to take things forward. So we based all of that knowledge and surrounded all of that knowledge, and we developed a pay claim. We then wanted to just basically check that out. So we went out and we consulted with branches, with boards. We engaged with the committees. We engaged with the council. We engaged with the elected committees, as in the stewards, safety reps and learning reps. We engaged with the forum chairs, the professional side of the organisation and the PNC. Wide engagement. And that was us checking out what was right and what felt right and whether we were in the right ballpark, because it was a case of the staff and the trade union committee working together to actually get that ballpark figure. We got an affirmative on that, and then we went to to the start of the pay negotiation, which was how we talked to other unions and try and develop a joint pay claim. So we got collectively, and then we all, as 14 trade unions within the NHS Staff Council, we collectively asked the government to bring a pay talk forward to this year and to have that resolved before the end of the year, because we did not think it was right that nurses would have to wait to 2021 for a pay award. Not after what nurses have went through, and not after the commitment that people have made to looking after the people of this country. It's been a phenomenal effort, and I think we all recognise what we've all been involved in. Those talks were very constructive with the joint trade unions, but we didn't manage to get to a place where they could understand where the RCN was coming from, and therefore we went back, because there was another offer sort of put on the table, and we went back to our members again through that same structure just to check out, are we in the right place, people? Because we were very clear we wanted to represent nurses, we wanted to represent nursing. And lo and behold, what did our members say? To every single committee, every board, every person that we spoke to in that engagement exercise said, this is the right time for nurses and this is the right time for nursing. Stand up, Trade Union Committee, we're backing you up. Stand up, Royal College of Nursing, we're backing you up. And that's where we're at now. That's where we're at now. We are standing up for nursing and the Royal College of Nursing and for our profession. Pat, I think that answers your question. We've not had a lot to do.
No, that doesn't at all. I think that was a pretty comprehensive response, Graham. Thanks very much. So I'm going to give you a bit of a break now, and it's over to Donna. Donna, the next question is, why is now any different from any other times that we've asked for a pay rise? What's different this time round?
So let me talk about what's the same. It is the government that decides when and how much nursing staff are paid. But as Graham eloquently pointed out, this is a different set of circumstances. If you think about just the images in your mind about what nurses have done over the last 6 months in terms of fighting this COVID pandemic, we know that the public are extremely supportive of nursing staff at this moment in time. And actually, once you've got public support, I think it's a step away to help make the government feel the pressure from them as voters to really treat us as professionals. And what we say is the government has an opportunity to demonstrate that it values the nursing profession. So we've heard the words, we've felt the claps, but this is our unique opportunity. And I think never have we demonstrated before in such a way, perhaps unless you went back to, you know, the Spanish influenza, that actually we are actually fighting on the front line and caring for the lives of our patient. So it is a critical profession and we need it acknowledged.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to stay off. I'm going to keep off mute now because that's not working for me at all. Next question's for you, Graham. There's a lot of talk from different unions, Graham, about different asks and different percentages coming through. Where does the RCN stand in relation to them and working with them?
The RCN's position is very, very clear. We are wanting a substantive pay rise for nursing that actually, and that is where we are standing. My comments on other unions' positions, I'm not going to comment on that, right? Because actually it's up to other unions to justify their positions. What I can say to you is the RCN's ask is evidence-based on the socio-economic circumstances, on what our members told us, on the knowledge and skills and the responsibilities that nurses have in the complex roles that they do. It looks at the other professions. It looks at graduate entry into the profession and what salaries are at graduate entry into the profession. So our position is one that we feel is economically affordable, and the government have to make the political decision, as Donna has said. The government have to invest in its health service and invest in its nurses. We know what nurses are thinking just now, and they're not thinking that it's a good place to be. We want nursing valued. So I'm talking about the RCN's position here, because I can talk about the RCN's position from a position of knowledge, a position of strength, and a position of commitment. And that's where we're at.
Absolutely. Well said, Graham. The next question then for Donna is, can members be assured that this pay deal will be fair for all members, irrespective of their current banding? So is it going to be a fair pay deal for all members right across the bandings?
Okay, so what I can say to you is that your trade union committee have employed and worked with economists to ensure that any ask we make means that it benefits all members. I can't guarantee or assure you what the government will respond saying, but what I can say to you is you elected the trade union committee and they have been leading this work for months and months and months to make sure that any amount that we ask for benefits every single member, whatever band you are. So we expect to see a substantial pay rise for all our members.
Okay, so thank you, Donna. The next question that's come in, Graham, albeit that it fires into the independent sector employer issues, it's about practice nurses. And the question is regarding equal pay for practice nurses, and in previous times you've explained the difficulties of having to negotiate with different GP employers, and that is difficult because each practice or every group of practice operates slightly different. And the question is, however, salaried GPs have a deal which was negotiated for them by their union, which is most likely the BMA. Why can't the RCN do the same for practice nurses?
There's a slight edge to this question, okay? Right, GP practices, okay, are run by GPs as individual businesses. GP practices are, as I said, run by GPs, so therefore their membership is of the BMA. Okay, so I'm not going to slight what the BMA are doing because the BMA are protecting their membership as best they can. Our fight here is not with the BMA. Our fight here is about government funding and to make sure that the practices are involved in that. Now, we have not managed, we've been lobbying and lobbying hard and lobbying long and hard around this, but we've not managed to get that into play at all as yet. But that will not stop us continuing to lobby in that space. There is something around perhaps it's at the commissioning stage of services that we can look at. But I'm not going to steal the thunder of the new group that we've got working, which Teresa Fife is leading, alongside many. This is a council working group, and that's looking at the independent sector really, really closely. And one of the strands of work in that is pay. Now, it's not reported back yet, but we've had recent progress updates on that, and that work is being progressed, and it's being progressed at pace, as it's became one of the Trade Union Committee's priorities. We recognise that this area of work needs the recognition. I would love to wave a wand and put you all on agenda for change tomorrow. Unfortunately, that's not going to be possible. There's a lot of hard chat needs to take place. So I fully accept. I have got, in membership of the Royal College of Nursing, the Trade Union Committee recognises, I think we've got somewhere in the region of about 40,000 members within that one space in England alone. So your voice is being heard, and it's being heard loudly. Unfortunately, I can't report, and I'll be honest, I wish I could report, but I can't report on any massive progress in that space. What I can say, Staff Council, due to the Rcns lobbying, basically got some recognition and recommendations to come from Staff Council to go to all GP practices to make sure that people were paid as if at work during COVID and any COVID absences. So we are making some gains, but they're not as good as we would like them to be.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Graham. And there's two questions that have come in, Donna, that I'm going to pose to you. And they're around our own campaign, the Rcn Pay campaign. The first one is, and a question is linked to it, could the recent protests that have been going on from other campaign groups help or hinder the Rcn's campaign? And how will we get public support asking for a pay rise, especially when we're about to go into a recession or a period of austerity?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is that it's important for us as RCN members to get our messages out there. And the first message that we've said is that we expect nurses to get a substantial pay rise, and that has to be our ask. The second thing we know is that if we're going to influence the government, we have to influence and have the conversations as people with our families, our friends, because it is the public that influences the government, and they're kind of key to helping us with this campaign. So, and what I will say is that we know at the moment the public are extremely supportive of nursing staff, and we need to feel the government to feel the pressure from them as voters. So I think that whether it's, we have campaigned as RCN members, and we have that opportunity to support a wide range of protests, and we've seen them and campaigns. The thing I would say to you is that it isn't for us to fight each other as nurses. It's for us to be united in our ask for that substantial pay rise to the government. So I think it's not about, whether someone's doing it better or asking for a bit more. I think the information that we need to get out there is that actually nurses need to be valued, and value means increased pay. And secondly, it is true we are going into a recession as we understand it, but we do know that in or out of this recession that our profession has not been valued to date. And we do know the impact it's had on the pockets of many nurses not being able to live an adequate life, pay their rents, and all the other issues that we face. So I think it's really important that our messages go out there so that we can get public support, so that public do recognise the skills and the value that we put into society. And I'd end by saying to you that whether the government increase, and I'm not going to be able to say that that will be their choice, we will put pressure on them, but it is a political decision. They do have the ability, in the same way that they made decisions all through COVID, to pay nurses respectfully and properly for the work that they do.
Well said, Donna, absolutely. And those were the same questions that we were asked when we were standing on picket lines in Northern Ireland not so long ago, about the affordability issues, etc. But at the end of the day, as our nurses said to them on those picket lines, we didn't cause any recession. In fact, we kept working through it, paying our taxes. So without nurses, a health service can't run. Graham, we've had a few questions in about being member-led. So we want to ask you, as an elected member, do you believe the RCN is truly member-led on the issue of pay?
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate a bit on that?
Well, I would actually reverse the question, because actually, if it's not and it doesn't feel that way to the members at this moment in time, going to let me know, because we have made real considerable efforts and endeavours to actually ensure that we're keeping our members informed, keeping them up to date. I've done more webinars, more videos, more, whatever medium. If I'm not getting this message to the members, of which I am one, okay, I've got a lot of self-interest here, because I'm one of these members and I'm fighting for my own pay rise, okay. And if I'm not getting to that, to the crux of that, I need to know that. But what I am going to say to you is, on my honour, right, and I really mean this, no decision will be made about this pay rise without member consultation and member involvement, and the members will be the final decision makers on this. It's up to me, as a representative of the members who's been elected, to make sure that the members have all the information and all of the data which allows them to make that decision. And our committee is totally committed to that attitude. It's totally about making sure we cannot go into a campaign. We cannot go into a campaign without membership leading it. If this is a corporate campaign, I may as well tie up my football boots at this moment in time, because it ain't going to happen. This is not going to be corporate. This is member. This is grassroots. This is about nurses speaking about nursing and speaking about that to as many people as they can, because without that, we are on a hiding to nothing. So member-led, not only member-led, member involved, member engaged, and member decision maker.
Thanks, Graham. The next question, if you don't mind, I'm going to maybe just talk a little bit about the question that has come in, and what is being asked is that if the pay claim that we have put forward and asking for isn't granted, is the RCN prepared to embark on industrial action? So I'm sure members tonight will know that in Northern Ireland we have just came through a period of industrial action. What I would say is that our industrial action is suspended, not ended. So we are still legally in dispute with our employers, and including the Department of Health in Northern Ireland. The first thing I would say to members is that it's for members to decide what action we take following the negotiations, and should that pay rise is not be sufficient, and our members tell us that, it's then for our members to get into that engagement that Donna and Graham has talked about with us, and tell us as their RCN what they wish us to do. And that's what we did in Northern Ireland. I was in post a number of months when we took up industrial action in Northern Ireland, and it was very, very clear from our members that that's what they wished to do. Now, it wasn't an easy decision by any means, and it's not the first decision you want to take, and it's certainly not the first thing that you want to rush to. It was a hard decision. Our members give it very careful consideration and very careful thought. But the one thing that I would say, and I have the utmost admiration for the members in Northern Ireland and right throughout the RCN, they did that because they knew it was the right thing to do for their patients. They did it because they knew that they had to stand up and be counted on behalf of their patients. And the industrial action that we took in Northern Ireland was principally about safe staffing. Now, pay was a key component of that because the two are integrally linked. One comes with the other. If nurses aren't treated decently and aren't paid decently and recognised and rewarded decently, we aren't going to hold on to the skills and the expertise that we have got within our system. So we could see a system that was draining, and we were absolutely getting nowhere with nurses in Northern Ireland not being awarded properly from around 2012, their pay dropping behind by 15%. And honestly, morale was in their boots. So after much negotiation, consideration and careful attention by our members, they believed that they were left with no choice but to actually have their voice heard at the highest level and to take the action that they took. That action was taken with a very careful hand by members. When they stood on picket lines, they had the utmost support from the public, and that was really, really important to nurses because it's not an easy thing to walk away from your area of work, and patients in particular for nurses is not something we do lightly. And most nurses that did take the action, and it was the majority in Northern Ireland, were very, very careful about how they managed that. They kept their public with them every single step of the way. I was never as proud of my own profession when I stood on picket lines along with Donna and along with trade union committee members who came with us and stood in the freezing cold and the rain and the frost from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And each and every one of our members just were so professional about that. But by golly, did they have their voice heard, and they had their voice heard loud and clear. But what each and every nurse was asking for in Northern Ireland was they wanted to see a system put in place where nurses would be encouraged to come back and work in Northern Ireland, paid appropriately and paid properly what they deserved. And consequently, the only people that would benefit from that, other than nurses having a fair pay, were patients themselves. And that did happen. And the public really, really got it. But it's not your first point that you would jump to. You have to do a lot of communication, a lot of negotiation, and a lot of work behind the scenes to get there, to make sure you hold your public with you. And the patients that were coming out and out of the hospitals when we were standing on picket lines, that was really, really important. But there is no doubt in my mind, when we stand collectively, cohesively, and stand as one in the Royal College of Nursing, we are a force to be reckoned with. We are a force that won't be ignored. And each and every member of government, which we didn't even have at that stage, were embarrassed back into government in Northern Ireland as a result of what nurses did. But that does take a very steady hand from our members, and it does take us standing together and speaking with one voice and being cohesive and collective in our approach. So do not rule industrial action out for the Royal College of Nursing. As your executive leads, and certainly as your trade union, we will do what you wish us to do, but we'll do it with a very steady, careful hand, and we'll walk alongside you every step of the way. I don't know whether Graham or Donna wants to add anything to that.
The only thing that I would add is that actually, when we take the decision, if it will be a member taken decision, and it's members' actions that will lead us into any kind of action. So it's not the RCN. The RCN is its members, and this is the whole point of being member-led, because we know that we have to get a substantial number wishing to take industrial action, and that will mean that our members will need to stand up and be counted.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's really a really important point, Donna, because when we started out in Northern Ireland, the powers that be were saying they were very relaxed about what we were embarking on, because our members wouldn't come behind us. They were saying you'll be embarrassed with a 14% return rate of those that wish to take industrial action. Well, certainly our members in Northern Ireland told them that that wasn't going to be the case. So we did get a very substantial turnout, and our members did speak with their voice. But that does take a lot of work to actually engage with members, to assist and support members to understand what industrial action means. And that it's not an easy road to go down. It definitely is not an easy road to go down, but it's not a road that we haven't travelled now in the Royal College of Nursing. And right across the UK, we had the utmost support in Northern Ireland. In fact, we could not have done this as Northern Ireland PLC. We were successful in Northern Ireland because each of the countries came in behind us and supported us 100%. And that's testament to the Royal College and what we can do when we stick together and work very hard at something for members, but it has to be member-led. So Donna, there's a next question for you, and that is, the government is supporting business with Eat Out to help out. Nurses in the USA have something called hazard pay during COVID. Can this be negotiated for us across the countries? Members are asking.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'd be truly concerned that that nurses in the USA seem to get paid so much better as part of their basic pay, and seem to be able to live on their basic salaries. We have to achieve that first here. So we're not demanding a COVID bonus. We're actually demanding fair pay for every single nurse or nursing staff in this country. It's not, we're not the army. This is what we do day in, day out. It's about valuing your work every single day. It's not just through the COVID period, but what happens after the COVID period when we go back and we provide care to our patients, whether they're critical, wherever they are, whether they're in the health service or in the independent sector. So I think it's for us, we've listened to what your ask is, and you ask for your jobs, your roles to be valued. And that means that we want an early, significant, substantial pay rise. It's not about a one-off bonus, because actually we need to achieve fair basic pay.
Very good. Graham, a question for you. When are we going to announce our pay campaign launch, is being asked?
Well, I have some really, really good news for the members, and I'm sure that they'll be absolutely desperate to hear this, okay? You will receive an email. It will be sent from the RCN tomorrow morning around about 6 o'clock, so get up early, folks, and log into your email accounts. Tomorrow will be the launch of the RCN's pay campaign, and that pay campaign will be called Fair Pay for Nursing. That's what we're going to be doing. The figures will all be out there, and we will be getting behind exactly what we've been talking about in the earlier part of this broadcast. We will be getting behind that completely, and that's about a consolidated, and that's where Donna was absolutely right. If Boris Johnson thinks he can get away with giving us 200 quid, right, and then a pat in the back, get lost, get lost. This is about us getting a consolidated pay rise for nursing, that the basic salaries are actually elevated to what they deserve to be at, and that pay rise is pensionable, so that nurses receive good pension after they've committed their life to the public service that they have over the amount of years that they have. So be in no doubt, tomorrow will be the start of a period of action for this college and for our members, and that means every single person on this call, and not only every person on this call, but actually I want you to go to work and I want you to tell other members. I want everybody to have on their lips what the pay rise will be, because we need to have that vision, and that vision needs to be shared by you, by I, as well as the staff of the RCN. Donna has referred to it. The RCN is its members. We will not do this alone. We will need support. We will need the public support. We will need to engage across the whole of Civic UK, and we will build. We will build this, and we can win this. Believe me, I believe this is our once in a lifetime opportunity to win.
Very good. Excellent, Graham. So we'll all be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, because I'm a member as well, waiting on my email to drop in. So look
You're
forward.
not under agenda for change, Pat.
I know, but I want to see. I still get the emails, Graham, you know. So so that I can respond to all the members in Northern Ireland when they start to make those calls. So that's brilliant. That's excellent. Donna, there's a question in. What's the government saying to the RCN about the pay award? And would an award like we've seen announced a few weeks back with other professions last month be enough for the RCN? Now, we're not asking you to give away tonight, Donna. We'll have to wait till 6 o'clock in the morning. But would that be enough? Is that what we're going to be saying? So people are testing us here to try and get a little bit of information just about what does the RCN feel would be enough?
So one of the things that we are very, very clear about, we surveyed all our members and asked what will they make them feel valued. And they said a substantial pay rise. So this isn't just 2% or 1%, it is substantially more than that members have said that they want us to ask for. So this isn't, I can elaborate on it and I can say that it is much more than we've seen awarded, but this goes right back to your ask as members. It isn't, conceived by me or by Graham. We absolutely surveyed members and we have found out what you are asking us to ask for. So what I'll say to you is look out for tomorrow, because we are asking for a substantial and significant pay rise.
Very good. Graham, do you want to say anything on that?
Double digit.
Get up at 6 o'clock, in other words. Okay. And Graham, then a question for you. There's a few questions in for you, which I'll ask. This first one is, when will the pay award be received? This double-digit one that you're talking about?
The answer to that is going to be, I don't know. Okay. What I can elaborate on is the process that we're involved in. At the moment, the joint 14 trade unions have asked that we get into pay talks early. And at the moment, the government have not given us any indication that they wish to do that. The likelihood is that the government will use the pay review body process, but they haven't issued the remit letter, which allows the pay review body process to be kicked off. The normal timeline for the pay review body process in normal years is that we give evidence in the autumn, and basically the pay review body reports back in the spring for the government to enact the pay rise in the April of 2021. However, Pat, before we go there is something different in the pay review body that we are going to be dealing with. Normally, the RCN and the other trade unions accept the pay review body recommendations on the evidence that we've been provided, and we will be providing to them. This time, the pay review body will have a clear signal from all of the trade unions, but in particular, what I'm talking about tonight is about the RCN's pay. And what we will be doing is actually putting a pay claim in to the pay review body and justifying that pay claim with the evidence. So the question was, when's it in our pay packet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the pay review body comes back and they say they stick to the normal. So there's a lot of if they, maybe this, maybe I, maybe no, right? But if they stick to their normal routine, we would then have an offer from the pay review body, which would be imposed by the government, if you like. Okay, because it is a government decision. We would then have to take that. If it was not what we want it to be, double digit, we would then have to take that to our members and say, this is what's been offered. What do you want us to do about it? What do you want us to do? Because the members have clearly given us a signal of what they wanted. And if there's a wide variation in what they wanted and what they're offering, I would expect our members to be pretty damned angry about that and expect them to want action. But the RCN can't take the action. It's the members that do. So in response to the question that you had earlier, Pat, and you quite eloquently answered, then it goes back to the members and what do you want us to do about it? I've not given you an answer of when, but I've given you an answer of how.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Graham. Graham, another question, and I know it's been touched on earlier, but I think it's a really important one, and members are continuing to raise it, and it is important. What happens if it's not a joint union claim and the RCN find themselves on their own? How do we handle that? And do we go it alone, is what's been asked.
Tomorrow, what we are doing is we are standing alongside all of the other trade unions in asking for a substantial pay rise that's brought forward to this year, because we don't think that nurses should wait until next year. We are then going to be talking about what the RCN says and believes our value and the value of nursing is. And we have said that all the way through, and all the way through with our discussions with the other trade unions, and we will continue to say that, and we will stand up for nursing in this pay round. That's all I can say on that, Pat.
Okay. Okay, Donna, now are you ready for this one? I'm building this one up for you, but I think it's important that this question is put to you. How much of a distraction is the presidential elections and the council debacle, as this member has put it? How much of a distraction do you believe that is? Now I know tonight's about pay, Donna, but I believe we need to just put that to you.
Well, you and I know that the election is probably, of our president, is probably the most important election, and it is governed by processes under the trade union legislation. We do have a responsibility as the RCN to make sure that the playing field is equitable and they're able to campaign equally. And as we put out, that regretfully, we know that complaints were received and we have, as an organisation, had to deal with them. It is a distraction because pay is far more important to each and every member. Although some members might know who the president is, every single member knows that they want a fair and substantial pay rise. So I think what I'd say is it is a distraction, but we in the college and staff of the college and your trade union committees and your professional nursing committees are continuing to do the work that we need to do on your behalf.
Okay, thank you, Donna. And I know, Donna, that may be a little bit unfair to ask tonight because we have to be very, very careful just about discussing these really important issues. But it is important that I put that question to you, and thank you for being so open and honest with us. Donna, you're not getting off because the next one's for you as well. And this question is a very interesting question. Does the RCN engage the services of professional negotiators with experience of negotiating large-scale change? And do we internally, through our elected members and through the staff members, have the knowledge, skills and experience equal to those that we will face during this campaign? That's a very interesting question.
It is an interesting question. I'd just say today that remember that when we negotiate, we do negotiate using a partnership approach, and we negotiate for all staff on agenda for change. And so for that reason, the RCN leads 14 unions to make sure that the whole of the NHS workforce has fair pay and conditions. So that's the backdrop of this. And actually, some of these individuals have been part of those negotiating, have those skills and experience because they have been doing it for us for a very long time. One of the things that we do need to make sure that we're doing is our own economic modelling, so that we're very, very clear about what the impact of anything that we've negotiated has on our members. And we have strove to do that, to make sure that any ask we have benefits each and every member. Now, it's really important for us to understand that there isn't a pile of people sitting out there with massive experience on negotiating that we can just pull in and bring them. I think what's the value of our negotiators is they often understand our profession. often understand that it is a critical profession and that it does have complex skills and it needs to be paid adequately. So there are models of how you employ negotiators, but often for Agenda for Change, we do have a skilled workforce that we rely on. That doesn't remove the fact that actually we will put an ask to the government and they will respond to that ask.
Very good. Yes, and I would agree with that, Donna, but I'm just going to, I suppose, draw on our experience again in Northern Ireland. Not that I believe that Northern Ireland is the centre of the universe, but it's very close to it. And our members are absolutely brilliant members. I'm sure all of the members are, but it's been a privilege to have worked with the Northern Ireland members over this past year as their director. And what I found during the period of industrial action, which still continues, is that in those negotiations, the most powerful voice was the members' voice. And when I brought those members into the room to sit across the table from the minister and from the permanent secretary that Graham actually probably knows on first name terms now, and with the civil servants, that's where the real impact happened. Because our members never let us down in terms of telling their story on behalf of their patients as to why they needed to be treated decently in relation to their pay, and decently in relation to safe staffing, and decently in relation to getting legislation in place for safe staffing. And actually, all I had to do was really facilitate those discussions, because our members were just so professional and just so brilliant with their experience. So in relation to that question, do we have the knowledge, skills and experience? I believe each and every one of our members has that knowledge, skill and experience. And it was a privilege to see that in total action on picket lines and during that period of industrial action. So I have no doubt in my mind that our nurses in the Royal College of Nursing, our members, will be able to negotiate at the highest level alongside us. And that's the benefit of working alongside each other together and all in this together to get the best outcome. I don't know whether, Graham, you want to maybe pay tribute to our permanent secretary at this stage, but maybe I'll just leave that where it is.
Well, I have to say, Pat, he was extremely rude to us, wasn't he?
He certainly was. He was, and I won't labour time, but we decided after he wouldn't engage with our members for a number of years, he decided that he would engage with Donna, so Donna got on a plane and came over. So we had to negotiate and engage with him in the absence of a minister, because we didn't have a minister. So in essence, he was acting as a minister because we didn't have a government. And he did everything but put Donna out of the room. In fact, at one stage, I think he did get up and move towards to open the door, and Donna sat her ground. And I never seen, he is a man that doesn't do, he never certainly demonstrates being under pressure. He was under pressure that day. And the arrogance and the ignorance and the disdain for what we had to say to him was incredible. But it was actually a turning point. There was no doubt that that was a turning point that day, where he knew you carefully and with a careful hand said to him, when he said, "Are you going to call this off?" You said, "Absolutely not, because our members haven't given us permission to call it off." And he said to you, "Well, where will it end up?" And you said, "It'll end up when you pay our nurses decently and start to treat them with the dignity that they deserve." And honestly, for being under pressure, because we were about to head into picket lines at that stage, I was never as proud in all my life to come out and think, as nurses, we really stood our ground. And then Mr. Reevy got acquainted with him on Twitter after that.
Yeah, but that was because we had members behind us.
Absolutely. And that was really, Donna, I think I can't overemphasize tonight the importance of our members walking alongside us. We can come up with ideas and have those ideas and work them through, but the power of membership is incredible when we all are, as I would say, anyone that knows Northern Ireland, we've got an M1, which is the main road in and out of Belfast. And when we all head down the M1 together and come off at the same stop together, that was such a powerful way to be. Honestly, it was, and that's what got us to where we are in Northern Ireland. And it's an absolute privilege to see nurses doing that. So Graham, just on that note then, members are asking, what can they do to help? We've talked a little bit about that, but from the Trade Union Committee, what do you want the members to do now? You're on mute, Graham.
Thank you. Well, apart from get up every morning at 6 o'clock and tweet Mr. Richard Pingali, and let him know exactly what I'm thinking, and then wait until 5 o'clock in the evening and then tweet him again just to remind him that he's not responded. I think that that's one thing that you can do, is actually we need to engage. This is a political argument. We need to engage politically. We need to make sure that MPs understand the rationale behind this. So we're starting a pay campaign, right? And we're asking for this pay campaign, we're asking for this pay award, and we're asking for it to be fully funded. That's important, because a fully funded pay award means that we're not looking for it to be stolen from other parts of the health service. We're looking for it to be given by the Treasury, fully funded by the Treasury, and that it has to be consolidated into nurses' pay. So, an important group that we need to engage with is our MPs. The next important group that we need to engage with is our colleagues. So many people in the RCN take out the RCN as a membership insurance in case anything goes wrong within their employment. That's not what trade unionism is. Trade unionism is about activism. It's about activating that whole community to sing with one voice, collectively, joined up and together, because together we're strong. So that's the next group. After that, we need to look at how do we engage with civil society? How do we get the churches involved? How do we get the mosques involved? How do we get different, the Humanist Society? How do we get the Royal Society for the Institute of the Blind, for the Deaf Society? All of these different, very, very powerful civic groups. How do we get them involved? What about our colleagues who the NHS says no campaign? What about our colleagues who are in the nursing press? What about our colleagues in the national press? How do we get, so all of these things are all about membership involvement and individual members. My voice is no stronger than your voice. My voice is just as strong because we can actually tell stories. We can tell people what it's like to be a nurse, and they can relate to that. And some of the most powerful stories that come out of Northern Ireland was patients that were telling us the stories.
Absolutely.
Evidence-based stuff. So we need to get our families, our friends, our colleagues, we've got wide networks. And there's something about the job of being a nurse is actually you're an effective communicator. Let's use the bloody skills that we've been given, that are God-given to us, to actually start to communicate and let this country know what they're devaluing. Not the public, but that lot in Downing Street.
Well, I think, Graham, you've got a bit of passion there tonight, as usual, with that one. And you're absolutely right, Graham. Looking back again at Northern Ireland, we haven't got very long to go. We have another 7 minutes, but I just want to say this. I want to just, I'll take just 2 seconds to tell you this story. Standing on a picket line at the main hospital in Belfast, the Royal Victoria Hospital, and I was watching the faces of our nurses all standing in their uniforms, and our district nurses coming down and stopping. And the next thing, this elderly lady with a walking frame had left the hospital, and she'd stood talking to one of our nurses, and I had watched this. And about an hour later, a taxi draws up, and it was a freezing January morning. And the elderly lady got out, and she lived, anybody that knows the Royal, it's in a very, very deprived area of Belfast. She'd gone up to her wee flat, and she'd felt the hands of our nurse, and they were freezing. And the nurse said to her, I've come off night duty, it's 10 o'clock and I've been working all night, but I'm going to stay here for the rest of the day. And she went up and she got her shopping trolley. She filled it full of water. She went down to the Poundland, filled it full of water bottles, went back to her home, filled it up with hot water and came down and distributed those hot water bottles to our nurses on the picket lines. So I'm saying that because it just demonstrated how much the public feel towards our nurses and towards our members. And when you've got the public behind you, there's nothing stronger and nothing more rewarding than those people standing alongside us. And I think we will, because nurses are so well respected by our public. And that's before the pandemic. So you can imagine what people feel now about our nursing staff after a pandemic. So with 5 minutes remaining, and I'm going to put this question to you, Donna. The last pay deal was poorly represented to our members. What lessons have been learned?
So I can say to you that I've been enrolled for 2 years, and the lessons that we learn, and my promise when I took up being the chief executive, is that we would not go for any deal that wasn't member led. And what I can say is that it feels quite different, because the way in which we've done this pay deal is we came out to members first to seek their advice about what would be meaningful to them. So I'm really clear that your trade union committee has worked really hard, but it started from our ask to you as members. And I think, present debacle aside, I think that we've learned a lot from what happened. One of the things that I committed to being is open and transparent. So we look and we work very differently. We do listen to you as members. I think Graham explained the process before we even got to, we had a pay strategy. We've worked out how we're going to make our asks and what we're doing to represent members. I don't make it up. I don't negotiate with the government. Our trade union committee sets out the negotiations, and like tonight, we're talking to you. We're answering your questions so that you know that it's important to us to respond to the things that you're asking us to do on your behalf. So the world feels a bit of a different place, not quite today or not quite this week, but for me, I think what we've tried to do is improve our member governance and our communications, and tonight is just one example of how we're doing that.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. Now I'm going to wrap up by saying that the next event is on the 3rd of September, and you won't want to miss it, because we've got Graham back again with the passion that he's shown tonight, along with Rachel Hollis, and Rachel is the chair of our professional nursing committee. So again, from 8 to 9, and certainly I'll be tuning in for that, and I would encourage as many members as possible. So Graham, would you mind if I just give you the last word tonight to say something to our members?
Lift the phone to your friend and tell them to watch their email account tomorrow morning. Lift the phone to your grandmother and tell her the nurses are standing up for themselves. And lift the phone to your manager and say, hey, there's something going on today that we should know about. There's something going on today that actually allows us to actually speak loudly and clearly for ourselves, for nursing, and for our profession. Together we can make the change.
Excellent. Thank you, Graham. And Donna, the very last word to yourself.
I just want to say thank you for everyone that's come to listen. The RCN continues to work with you and support you, and pay is one of the things that you have said is the most important thing on your agenda, as well as safe staffing and a number of other things. So just thank you for coming along tonight, and actually it's over to you, because we will try our best in those negotiations, but we'll be led by you.
Thank you very much, Donna and Graham, and thank you for your time. Thank you, members, for joining in with us tonight, and thank you for your time. We really do want you to tune in on the 3rd of September. It's really important that you hear from the Professional Nursing Committee and the Trade Union Committee, who work very, very closely together. And by then, we're going to have some patches for Graham Reevy and try and get him off those cigarettes. We've been trying for some time, but as any good nurse, we'll keep on trying, won't we, Graham?
The way things are going, actually, it's going on to my expenses, Donna. You know, it's an extra packet a day the way that you've got me working at the moment.
We're definitely going to put you on a reduction programme. So thank you very much, members, and a very good evening. Thank you.